I see people coming in. Hello, Knoxville. Hello, Shenandoah Valley, Southwest Virginia. My friends from all over, welcome to the video. Again, it's going to be very difficult for me to fly through these and look at all of these places, okay? Weather.gov is where you want to watch if you want your super specific forecast. But I am going to try to get a little bit close tonight, and we'll talk about some of these details. There comes the snow moving into the central U.S. And hey, Jazz, thank you for that super chat. Appreciate that very much. Awesome. And we're going to talk about how this snow moves east and where some of the models are differing. Now, as we move toward Tuesday, this is when things get interesting. You've got a pretty decent jet streak starting to come through here. I was looking at some of the upper level dynamics, what's going on. You don't have a strong area of low pressure developing. Now, I want to tell you something. This is a really cold Arctic air mass building in. You're going to have winds howling out of the east. So, you know, some of the models, especially the NAM, is trying to shift a little bit further to the north and put some of that snow closer to St. Louis. This looks like a mess here across Missouri, Arkansas, and then further to the east. We are looking at the GFS right now, okay? We're going to start here, and we'll work our way into the closer, into the NAM. This is the late evening run, the 18Z run. It doesn't use as much data. It doesn't use balloon data as much, so I don't know that I dig into it completely, but the GFS certainly still showing the snow across Tennessee. Now, I will tell you that places like Memphis are going to be right on that line. The official forecast for Memphis is only an inch or two, so we'll have to see how all that works out. Hey, Chris, thanks. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate your support here on the channel. But yeah, let's continue to push this out in time. There comes that heavy snow now. Look at this. Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina on the GFS. But look what what it does. It says, see ya. It's out. Okay, it doesn't want to come up the coast. All right, let's go to the European from this afternoon. Actually, this is the 18Z run of the European. All right, heavy snow across Kansas, and we're going to look at some of these totals here in just a moment. They could exceed 10 inches. Some areas where you're under those winter storm warnings could be even more than that. Really impressive looking, especially where it's going to be cold on the northern side. You are just pumping a lot of cold air into this system. So snow ratios will be really high. The National Weather Service out of Indianapolis was talking about that potential. So even if you don't get much moisture moving into central and southern Indiana, you're just going to be pumping cold air in place, so you're going to get a really fluffy and cold, powdery type snow. Now, as we move into Wednesday morning, the precipitation moving along the south, low pressure starting to develop here along the coast. Your pressure start to fall here. Your upper trough still back here. So the European, in my opinion, is a little bit positively tilted. In other words, it doesn't want to take this low and hold it close to the coast. Your upper low spinning way back here. And by the way, underneath this really cold core of air, there will be some snow showers. The European really intensifies your low here along the coast. Puts some heavy snow here into Richmond. I mean, this puts it into Greensboro, Winston-Salem, D.C., very close to Baltimore. Now, let me tell you something. Please do not watch every single running, live and die by each model run. It'll drive you crazy. I promise you. I've been there. I've done that. I'm telling you from experience. Don't do it. So we're looking at one run here, but what has the trend been? Well, today it's been to keep it a little bit further to the south. All right. This is the national blend. Okay. I like this because it's not extreme. We're using several different models here. And the idea is still for a good 6-inch snow in this zone, right? So from DC down to Williamsburg to Richmond. Boy, that's interesting. I'm pretty wild to see that. Now, I'm going to back some of this up because it's a little bit deceiving. Some snow falling in the West Virginia mountains now, and then we throw the snow on top of it with a solid 6 inches west of that across Kentucky, an inch to 2 across southern Tennessee, and then at middle Tennessee up to Kentucky. We're talking about 2, 3, 4 inches of snow, and somebody in here could get a sweet 10 inches to a foot. These are blended model data, this is blended data rather, not operational run, which is, it can give you some really wild swings. Speaking of that, this is the European from the 18Z looking across the central U.S. Then we'll work our way east, right? Targeting right here, southern parts of Kansas, northern parts of Oklahoma, now into southern Missouri. You're talking about close to 10 inches with St. Louis very close to 5, 6 inches. Winter storm watches have been posted out for St. Louis. You know, we're talking about the idea that we could see some snow all the way over into parts of Kentucky. But the European has backed off on some of these numbers over here. I don't know that that's going to pan out. The NAM, on the other hand, this is just, come on, somebody give the NAM a bad, this is why the NAM gets a bad name. I'll tell you something about the NAM. I love it within that 36-hour time frame, okay? So Really, anywhere through about right here. Right? That's just not working. So I'd really like to see what it looks like tomorrow. But the NAM is just trying to dump 18 inches of snow here across central Missouri, eastern Kansas, up to 10 inches up toward St. Louis. And then look, it really just shunts the moisture to the north because it's way north. All right, that's the problem with the NAM, I think, today. Let's look at some real numbers that have been forecasted. These are the numbers across Kansas, and then we'll work east. You're looking at 6 inches right here, plus right near the Oklahoma border. So the northern counties of Oklahoma could see more than 6 inches. Those numbers taper off pretty quickly as you move south across Oklahoma. Further to the east, check it out, up towards St. Louis. Right now, forecast is for, it looks like between, I'd say, well, what do you think? Very close to 6 inches or so. To the south of that, that looks like where the heaviest band is going to set up. So southern Missouri into northern Arkansas, a good 6 to 12 inches, I think, here. And then those numbers are starting to taper off as you move to the east because you're also going out in time. So some of this is going to fall Wednesday night into Thursday. This forecast, you can see from the National Weather Service, only goes out through 7 p.m. So you've got that. That's one of the reasons you look at the models too. You want to see past beyond a forecast. All right. So that's what we're looking at tonight. This is the European, closer look at the East Coast. The new data that came in this evening, much further to the south. Today's run, the midday run, a little bit to the north. Did you see that jog? This is where we are right now. This is where we were this afternoon. This is where we were last night. Okay. So there's definitely been a jog south. Now, before you throw in the towel and say we're done, and you're right, the NAM gets a little too excited sometimes, right? It's like the guy who just, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been running down a hill and you're just running, and all of a sudden you start outrunning yourself? That's kind of how I view the NAM. It just kind of loses control after it just gets going. Yes, I think it does. It just gets a little too excited. This is the NAM, all right? Look how much warmer it is. And it's got a stronger low, all right? The NAM gets in that killer time frame right around 48 hours, I think. I like it. But so beyond this, I don't know. So take this with a grain of salt. It's much further to the north. And now, check it out. You've got the snow further to the north and west. I mean, it tries to put heavy snow almost up to Indianapolis to Columbus, and it just thumps D.C. to Baltimore. This is where the NAM gets different. It takes the low, and boom. Do you see that right there? It wants to develop surface low pressure right here just off of the Grand Strand of South Carolina, and it pulls it right up the coast. Look at that. That right there, that's a strong winter storm. And I'm going, what's it seeing here? Why is it doing this? And we can look at these surface maps and go, okay, cool. It's further to the north. I ask why. Why is this further to the north? What's going on here? Well, here's what I think. Again, looking at forecasting, for years, what you want to see is a negatively tilted trough. And in the upper levels, here's your upper low. This is winds at about 300 millibars, so pretty high up. You can see your jet stream coming in like this. This would be Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. So if you're having surface low pressure swinging right in here and developing, what you want to see is a negatively tilted trough. We don't see that on the European, but look at the NAM. Boom. This looks different, right? Look at this axis. So here's your upper low. Here's your trough. It's tilting back to the northwest a little bit. Can you see that? Right there is the NAM. Let's go back to the European. I mean, I would argue it's more positively tilted, right? Definitely more progressive. So the NAM is saying, man, this thing's going to dig a little more. And when that happens, right here near the coast, surface low pressure is just going to develop. You've got a lot of good wind aloft. Look at that jet streak showing up. These are the things that really cause surface low pressure to deepen. So that's what the NAM is picking up on. The European, look where the jet stream is. Look where the strong winds are. They're offshore. Your trough axis is not really, I mean, it goes negative, but it's a little too late. By the time it does, it's got most of the energy offshore, so your low pressure is pushed out to sea. So the NAM's trying to say, hey, this thing's going to come a little bit closer to the coast. This is where we are right now. This is 84 hours on the NAM. Do I believe it? I do not believe this whatsoever. Okay, I would stick with, for now, at least for the East Coast, this blended data, which is still pretty impressive. If you want to get in a little bit closer here, let's move into the Northeast and we'll look at this blended data first, and then we'll kind of work our way off to the south and west. And we'll start pretty far to the north, because some of this snow back here, by the way, is falling right now. This is New York into the Northeast. I mean, if this thing skirts the coast, we're barely going to get anything here. But the blended model data It's trying to show a couple of inches here across New Jersey. Still showing it. Still showing close to 6 inches. Now, granted, let's go just a little bit further to the south here. We'll go we'll center up Maryland here. So here's New Jersey, Delaware right in here. I mean, this still looks like the sweet spot to me, from D.C. over really almost up to Baltimore, out to the Maryland coast, up to Delaware. Yeah, it looks pretty snowy to me at this point. Now, let's go over to the European from today. That's comparing the blended data. This is an operational run, which is just boom, boom. I mean, and what I don't like about this is there is this strong cutoff. That's a high rip-off zone, right? So you've got the European saying we're going to get 20 inches of snow at Virginia Beach. I don't know, right? Come on. Are we daydreaming here? Go back to the 12Z run. It was further to the north and west. Go back to last night's run. It was way further to the north and west. So there were a lot of sad people waking up this morning. And I don't think you can lock any of this in yet. But the trend today, yes, has been further to the south. Even today's 18Z run on the European, which ran this evening, still continuing that southerly trend. The hope, again, for you guys in the Northeast, if that's what you're hoping for, is that the NAM is sniffing something out, and that's trying to hold this thing closer to the coast. I don't know that it is. It would it'll be interesting to watch over the next 24 hours how this evolves. And again, you're just using model data here, right? So if you back this up, I want to show you where we are right now. Heading into Monday, some of this energy is still up over Western Canada, some of it just now coming ashore along the West Coast. And I mean, come on, guys, we're still dealing with this storm in the Northeast tonight. So I think as we get into tomorrow, we'll start to sample this part of the country with weather balloon data. You'll start to get more information coming into the models. They start to give better output. All right, so stay tuned. More to come, I think, on narrowing that down, whether or not I believe this negatively tilted NAM or not. I don't know that I do right now. A little bit wider look at the European numbers here, the deterministic run that ran this evening. Again, there's that heavy band of snow. If we were to go back earlier today, a little bit snowier back across Kentucky too. Now, I don't know. I think some of this was actually, so some of that across Kentucky was being picked up on from the snow that was expected or that could have fallen today. So, yeah, these totals are really pretty close to where they were earlier. Not a huge difference back here at this point in time. And then the snow gets much heavier further to the west across Missouri, back across northern Arkansas, and then across Kansas and Oklahoma. So time will tell. This is the GFS, by the way. It also has that sweet spot right here across southeast Virginia. It's a lot further south, too. This is the 18Z run. This was the run earlier today. This was last night's run. It hasn't moved a tremendous amount. It might be lighter with the snow back across the central U.S. as it moves east. But, I don't know. I mean, you're still talking 16 inches of snow showing up here. From central Kansas over into Missouri. So, all right, we'll see how all this works out. Here's a look at the NAM, a wider view. And look, it says no snow in Virginia Beach, no snow for North Carolina. I mean, the NAM is it's the outlier in my opinion. But I guess if you're clinging to some hope and you're looking for something, you're going to want to cling to the NAM. That's the problem. We wishcast and we always go to the model that gives us what we want. At this point, I would lean that it likely does something like this on the European, but I could be wrong. It's just a guess at this point, just because we've seen that trend. But I think it's interesting to see that upper low and how's that going to interact. Again, backing it up to where we are right now, some of this energy just now coming ashore. So let's get better sampling and better model data, and we'll see that over the next 24 hours. I hope that kind of helps. I hope you you might be more confused going, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, honestly, I don't. I mean, when you look at a model that goes from this to this, which I know, I mean, you still got your focus here, to this. Now you got no snow in Richmond, with heavier snow much further to the north. I want to see this NAM come into alignment as far as the east goes. Further to the west, let's go back out toward Oklahoma, because that snow out here, I think we're starting to narrow into that NAM's sweet spot maybe. So it's one of the concerns that there could be maybe some overachieving snow up here in the southern parts of Kansas and maybe even over to Missouri. So again, remember that the actual forecast here in this area is for somewhere between 6 to 12 inches of snow, and some areas could see locally higher amounts, especially as you get over here into Missouri. All right, that's all I got in this video, guys. Thanks you so much for joining me in the chat. I've seen some of your comments. I know it's all over the place. Ozark, Missouri could see up to 13 inches. I think so. I mean, and one of the reasons, if you look at this, you can see these numbers are a little, I don't want to call it hot, but you pretty high here on the forecast. And let's pop over to the NAM, by the way, just since we're looking at it. I mean, this might be a little bit of eye candy, but let's do it anyway. Let's see where we are on these snow totals. There you go. I think this is way too heavy. However, keep in mind, just take a little bit off of this, maybe 10, 20%, and you're close to those max amounts that you could see, right? So this is using some of that cold air, too, in the ratios that it's figuring out. And this also puts the heavier snow into Indianapolis. But if you pop it over a 10-to-1 ratio, much lower amounts. And if you really want to dig into it, by the way, that's what I'm doing, just some analysis here. So your liquid equivalent, about an inch of rain here is what you're looking at across central Missouri. So it's not like you're dealing with, inch and a half of moisture content up in here. At this point, let's zoom in for example, Indianapolis looking at about 0.4. So 0.4 of an inch, 41 100ths of an inch of rain. So that would equate to about 4 inches of snow. It's almost double that. That's like a 20-to-1 ratio. So I think that's what's happening here when you look at the Kuchera version here. If you're looking at models, it's probably taking that cold air into account because it is going to be really cold here too. So you go back to the 10-to-1 ratio. How about that? I mean, right on, almost on the money, right? 4.5 inches in Indianapolis. So it's one thing I also like to look at is how much moisture are the models actually predicting and how much is going just ballistic with the cold air in place, because there's going to be some really cold air moving south behind this system heading into next week with temperatures. Look at this, getting really cold into Wednesday. This could be some of the coldest air of the season. Wind chills could be 30 to 60 below zero. I saw some of the numbers that in the discussion from the National Weather Service, really impressive. And these are actual air temperatures being modeled out early Thursday morning. So yeah, once it snows, now you're dropping temperatures back to near zero. Highs may not get out of the single digits across Kansas and maybe even parts of northern Oklahoma. And then that cold air pushes all the way down into Texas, the deep southern states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama. Some really cold air on the way behind this. And then this starts to push east as we head into Friday and Saturday. And it's going to move into right here across the Midwest into the Mississippi Valley as we move into Friday. It does modify. Look at that. I think you give some credit to the warmer and stronger February sun that we're starting to see. All right, that's all I got for now, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.